my beloved child. In the moments that seem the most ordinary in your life, when the morning light has not yet pierced through the curtains and the first breath of a new day is just forming, there is a quiet presence more profound than any sound or image. Many people only think of God when facing adversity, when prayers become urgent, or when the soul is stretched to the breaking point. But long before any trial appears, long before you even realize you need someone to lean on, God is already there, weaving himself into the smallest details you assume he would never bother with. He does not stand at a distance to observe. He walks with you, sits beside you, and is present even in the things you consider insignificant. And it is precisely within that ordinariness that his power becomes the most real and touches you the deepest. There are mornings when you wake without knowing why your heart feels lighter, as if the quiet sorrow lingering for weeks suddenly dissolved overnight. You often assume it is simply the result of a good sleep. But I tell you this at times, it is God intervening in the deepest places of your soul. While you sleep, he tends to your mind, gathers the tangled threads of your thoughts, and restores to you the peace you believed you had lost somewhere along your weary path. God does not only act through blazing miracles, he acts through silence. He does not always tear open the heavens to announce that he is near. Sometimes he simply lays a gentle layer of stillness over your spirit so you know you are not alone. God is more practical than you imagine. He is not confined to grand movements or events that shake the earth. He is present in the unconscious sigh you release, in the small smile that rises when something simple warms your heart, in the quiet relief you feel when you place your hand over your chest and sense your heartbeat steady and alive. The life moving within your body is not a self-sustaining mechanism. It is a gift being preserved moment by moment. Each beat of your heart is not a coincidence. It is a testimony that he is upholding you with every passing second. There are days you believe your survival is the result of your own strength, but in truth, it is the sheltering hand of the one who guides your every step. Even when you are unaware of it, God reveals himself in the very things you call small, the time you avoided a harmful decision without understanding why you felt prompted to stop, the moment you escaped an accident that could have gone differently by just a few seconds, the unexpected message from a friend who somehow sensed you needed a kind word without your saying anything. None of these things are random. They are God's hand working through the subtle, human, natural pathways so gentle that you only recognize them when you look back. I want you to understand this: God does not only answer with thunder, he also answers with a whisper. He does not only appear in miracles, he is present in ordinary moments, many mistakes as coincidence. When you are driving and feel a sudden urge to slow down and later discover there is danger just ahead, that is not mere instinct, it is God's quiet protection. When you are anxious over a problem and suddenly an idea arrives like a soft illumination, that is not simply your mind being clever, it is an answer given in silence, a reminder that he is still guiding you. Some people believe they must witness the sea parting, fire falling from heaven, or world-shaking miracles before they can trust that God is present. But my child, he has never revealed himself only through the dramatic. He also steps into the small moments, just as he did with Elijah, who heard his voice not in the windstorm or the earthquake, but in the gentle whisper that followed. God does not delight in spectacle, he delights in closeness. He chooses to come to you in ways that do not frighten you, do not overwhelm you, but wrap you in such unmistakable protection that your heart cannot help but say, "You are here." Remember those days when you were too discouraged, too exhausted even to pray. You simply lay there in silence, unable to form a single word, and you assumed that silence meant distance. But that was precisely when God was closest. He does not need your words to understand you. He reads what cannot be spoken. And when you no longer have strength to ask, He Himself intercedes for you with His mercy. That is the practicality of God. He does not require you to be strong before He acts. He does not require you to have perfect faith before He intervenes. He steps in at the very point where you are weakest, because that is where His love shines the brightest. My beloved child, even in your everyday choices, God is quietly guiding you. Have you ever wondered why you decided to take one road instead of another? Why you sensed you shouldn't meet a certain person? Or why you suddenly felt the urge to call a friend you had not spoken to in a long time? Those impressions do not arise from you alone. Many times, they are the practical nudges of the one who cares about every relationship woven into your life. You see only a fragment. He sees the whole landscape. You focus on the present moment. He watches the entire journey. You notice the surface. He perceives the roots beneath it. There are moments when you pray for direction concerning the future, but what you receive is only a single step. You grow discouraged because you do not see the full map. But God does not operate that way. He gives you just enough light for the next step, not because He is withholding, but because He wants you to learn how to walk with Him, not run ahead of Him. And in that process, you will come to realize just how practical He is. He does not merely point toward a destination. He holds your hand along the way. When you eat, when you work, when you speak, when you rest, when you grieve, and when you rejoice, God is not standing outside of those moments. He enters the rhythm of daily life to remind you that you are not enduring or celebrating anything alone. You do not need a major breakthrough to know that He is working. If you simply recognize that you woke up this morning with peaceful breath in your lungs, you already know He is tending to your life in the most tangible way. My child, the love of God is not a distant idea written on sacred pages. His love is His presence in every detail that forms your life. He is the one who sees you when you feel lost in a crowded street, the one who hears the sighs you do not notice, the one who lays an invisible hand on your shoulder whenever fear tightens your chest, the one who reminds you that even in the smallest things, He remains near. God is not only real, He is practical, and He is practical in ways that leave your heart unable to deny His nearness. My beloved child, when you look back on your journey, there are moments that, if not for spiritual eyes, you would dismiss as coincidence, but in the soft order of the universe, nothing is coincidence for the one loved by God. The seemingly insignificant moments are the clearest evidence that He does not merely watch you from afar. He is intertwined with the unfolding of your life in ways so subtle that only the still and attentive can perceive them. How many times did you find yourself in the right place at the right time, meeting the right person, hearing the right words your weary heart needed? How often did you narrowly escape something harmful, or stumble upon a solution just when everything felt stuck? If you pause and ask, "Why did it happen this way?" you will recognize the invisible hand that quietly adjusts each detail to protect you, open paths for you, and hold you up. That is not luck, that is providence. God's silent yet profoundly practical intervention. God does not act by force or by dramatic display. He weaves the threads of your life through the events of ordinary days, so that from within the everyday, you discover a great truth. He never leaves His place beside you. He does not wait for a crisis to appear on the scene. He is present when you fold your laundry, when you focus on your work, when a soft urge nudges you to change plans, or when an unexpected calm settles over your heart. These moments, so easily overlooked, are living proof that God is near in the most intimate and practical ways. I know the times when you felt defeated because you tried your best, yet the results fell short. You thought you were forgotten. ignored, pushed aside from God's attention. But you did not know that the very doors that closed were doors He shut to protect you. Some things you wanted right away would have become burdens too heavy for you at that time. And so God closed them, not to deny you, but to shield you from what you were not ready to carry. You call it failure, but in His wisdom, it was the most tender protection. Only after walking through winding paths do you see that His guidance has never once been wrong. I see the hours when you sat in silence, staring at nothing while your mind felt empty. I see the heaviness that made getting out of bed seem impossible. I see the thoughts you wrestle with, thoughts even you hesitate to admit. And in those moments, though no prayer rose from your lips, your heart was crying out. God hears the heart before He hears the words. He reads what you cannot articulate, and that is why His responses often appear so practical, even surprising an unexpected call that lifts your spirit, a sudden idea that opens a solution, a new opportunity that appears after days of suffocating stagnation. These are His answers in the quiet. God does not stand outside your life giving instructions from a distance. He steps into the very chaos you try to hide. You may believe He only cares about spiritual or lofty matters, but truly, He watches over the smallest things: a worrying expense, a confusing relationship, a conversation that could slip into misunderstanding, a conflict you do not know how to resolve. He sees it all, and He never stands with crossed arms while you struggle alone. He sends simple solutions that carry the power to change the course of an entire day. Remember, this God is not distant. He is not only the one who bore humanity's pain in ancient scripture, He is the one who touches the reality you live today. When you worry, He sees. When you fear, He feels. When you grow weary, He supports. When you lose direction, He places a small thought in your mind, a reminder, a scripture recalled, a sudden peace that makes no sense in the moment. These are unmistakable signs that God is not only in your future promises, He is in your present breath. There are moments when He prepares you for a change, yet you feel unsettled because you do not know how to move forward. He does not blame you. You are human, and change shakes even the strongest souls. But God uses that inner trembling as a signal the old season has reached its end. When you feel out of place in old patterns, it is a sign that He is lifting you from what no longer fits so He can place you where you will grow, where peace will flourish, and where His purpose for you becomes clearer. And the practicality of God is seen also in the people He places around you at the right time. Some come to lift you. Some appear to teach you a lesson you needed. Some are sent to pull you away from a wrong path. Some walk with you through seasons of hardship. No one arrives without meaning. God uses strangers to protect you from unseen harm. He uses familiar faces to remind you that you are not meant to carry life alone. He even uses those who hurt you to reveal the cracks He desires to heal. God is profoundly practical in how He uses relationships to build and refine you. Many times you wonder why you cannot hear God's voice clearly. You think you are not spiritual enough, or that God is being silent. But, my child, most of what God speaks does not come through a thunderous voice. It comes through gently arranged circumstances, a delay with no obvious reason, an unexplainable uneasiness, a peace that does not match the situation, a warning stirring in your heart, an opportunity that seems lucky. All of these are His language. You want to hear Him, but the truth is, you have heard Him many times already. You simply did not recognize that it was His voice. Try to remember the times you turned something down simply because it didn't feel right. And later, time proved that decisions saved you from much bigger trouble that was not just ordinary intuition, it was the practical guidance of the one who guards your path. Those days when you suddenly felt the need to pray for someone, and later found out they were going through a crisis that was not coincidence, that was the quiet movement of God working through your heart. God does not perform distant, dramatic acts just to prove His power. He does practical things to prove His love. That love is not only great in the promise of redemption, it is also revealed in the way He carries you through each hour, each day, each situation. He does not demand perfection from you. He simply asks that you dare to believe His presence is real, real in every gesture, every thought, every decision, every breath. When you truly grasp this, your inner world begins to change. You will no longer chase after spectacular miracles, because you will begin to realize that daily life itself is a miracle, and that miracle is being held together by the one who loves you with an unchanging love. God is not only the one who is in heaven, He is the one who is right beside you, and He walks with you far more than you think. My beloved child, as you continue to listen to the quiet movements within your spirit, you will slowly recognize that God is not only present in circumstances, in arranged events, or in strange coincidences. He is also present in the deepest workings of your inner life. No one understands your heart more than He does. No one sees the thoughts that have not yet fully formed. And no one touches the most fragile places in you with such gentleness and precision as He does. The practicality of God is not only expressed in outward actions, it is found in inward transformation at the root of everything you feel, think, and decide. There are days you wonder why you no longer take joy in the things that once excited you. You think you are changing without any reason. But in truth, it is God rearranging the priorities of your soul. What once thrilled you now feels strangely dull, not because you have become less passionate, but because He is lifting your gaze higher. He does not want you to remain tied to things that scatter your heart. He is drawing you toward what is warm, steady, and nurturing to your spiritual growth. And this quiet shift, almost imperceptible, is the first step into real depth in your spiritual life. God works in your heart by bringing up questions you once refused to face. You wonder why you have become more sensitive, more easily moved, or, at times, more easily saddened. You think it means you are weak, but in reality, He is opening the door for you to confront truths you have long avoided. He does not do this to drown you in sorrow. He does it so that you can trace your pain back to its root and make room for healing. There is no healing that does not touch the wound, and there is no transformation that does not unsettle you, at least a little. But in that inner trembling, God's hand is still very real. He holds your heart so it does not shatter, softens it just enough for Him to reshape it into what He desires. My child, God does not only step into what you do, He steps into what you think. Even before your thoughts become words, He already knows the direction they are taking. When a misaligned thought begins to form, He makes you feel a subtle unease, like a gentle bell warning you to stop. When a good intention is about to be poisoned by doubt or fear, He breathes a small beam of light into your mind so you can see what is truly wise. When you are about to make an important decision, He does not shout. He places in your heart an unusual weight, a sense that causes you to slow down, reconsider, bring it before Him, and then move in the direction of peace. Those who do not know Him would call it a gut feeling, but those who walk with Him understand this is the gentle voice of the one who leads. There are times you feel your heart being pulled in two directions, one pulled toward your own will, the other drawn toward what is good and right. You think you are simply wrestling with yourself, but in fact, It is the meeting point between your old self and God's active work within you. He does not only want to change your behavior, He wants to renew your heart, so that everything you do flows from true life inside. Changing outward behavior is easy. Transforming the root is something only the Creator's hand can do. Pay attention to this. God is very practical in how He teaches you to discern His voice from the voice of fear. The voice of fear pushes you to hurry. God's voice calms you. Fear drives you into pressure. God's voice brings a quiet rest. Even when you still don't see the answer. Fear makes you count everything you might lose. God opens your eyes to what is actually being preserved. And in that difference, you can see that He is working with you every day, every minute, even in the smallest moments others would overlook. I know there are hours when you quietly blame yourself for not being patient enough, wise enough, or strong enough in the face of trials. Yet instead of condemning you, God uses those very shortcomings as doors to step deeper into your life. He does not stand there to judge your weakness. He stands there to receive your brokenness and to make it the foundation of something new. Your imperfections become the very place where His love shines brightest. Once you realize this, you will understand that the practicality of God is not found in Him demanding perfection, but in how He takes every scattered fragment in you and turns it into something of value. There are days when your soul feels like dry ground. You open the Scriptures and your heart does not feel warmed. You pray and it feels empty. You walk forward but find no joy. You think God is distant, but in truth, that is the season in which He is teaching you to love His presence more than your feelings. He is teaching you to walk by faith, not by sensation. Spiritual maturity does not grow from moments when everything feels easy, but from the times when you still choose to seek Him, even when you feel nothing. True love is measured by faithfulness, not by temporary emotion. And in these dry seasons, God is more practical than ever. He is quietly preparing the soil, loosening the roots, and readying your heart so that when the rain comes, you will bear fruit more abundantly than before. God is practical as well in the way He corrects you. He does not scold, shout, or coerce. His correction is like the hand of a potter on a spinning vessel. Just a light, precise pressure in the right spot is enough to reshape the entire form. When you are about to veer off course, He lets you see the outcome with a small flash of insight. When your thoughts drift towards self-destruction, He whispers truth to call you back. When you are on the verge of saying something you shouldn't, He places an indescribable check in your heart that makes your lips pause. He does not use a hammer to fix you. He uses a touch, but that touch is enough to change everything. There are nights when you toss and turn, not because of insomnia, but because God is calling you back to things you've tried to forget, not to deepen your pain, but to stop you from running away. When you answer Him with nothing more than a sigh, He hears. When you say in your heart, "I am so tired," He understands. And when you open even a small corner of your heart, He steps into that tiny space to begin His work of healing. The practicality of God is not only in how He delivers you from circumstances, but in how He delves into the most human parts of you, the parts you are afraid to show anyone, and declares, "I still love you." The most practical thing God does for you is not changing everything around you, but changing the world within you. He turns fear into steadfastness. He turns resentment into compassion. He uses disappointment to build endurance. He removes old patterns and gives you a completely new way of seeing yourself, your life, and Him. These inner changes, as quiet as underground streams, yet as solid as bedrock, are the strongest proof that God is not as distant as you once thought. God does not act only in grand events. He works in the smallest chambers of your soul. And when you recognize this truth, you will know that not once have you ever walked alone. My beloved child, when you step into the crossroads of life, where you must choose among countless paths, and each one promises something, God is still standing there, not as a distant observer, but as a father who looks at you with eyes both gentle and profoundly understanding. He knows that within you, the desire to walk the right path is always stronger than the fear of making a mistake. And he knows that there are turning points where, if you rely only on logic or experience, you will not be able to discern which direction you should take. Therefore, in those crucial moments, he becomes more practical than ever. He does not leave you groping in the dark. He guides each step by ways that only a sensitive heart can perceive. The guidance of God is not always clear from the beginning. He does not place before you a detailed map, does not mark each stage of the journey, does not lay out steps the way a human plan might. Instead, he plants in your heart a gentle direction, a soft stirring, a trust that is difficult to put into words. Sometimes it is simply a sense of peace in one choice, or a subtle discomfort in a path that seems perfectly reasonable. When you feel that something isn't right, it may be God hinting that He has a better way. And when you feel that something is right even though you cannot explain why, it may be His voice opening the next step. God works not through the noise of the world but through alignment between your heart and His will, more than through dramatic signs. Sometimes you face two good options and feel unsure of what God wants. But if you listen deeply, you will realize that one of the two paths carries a resonance that belongs to Him, a harmony not born from fleeting emotions, but from steady divine guidance. God does not push you toward His will, He draws you, causing your heart to lean naturally toward what is right without coercion. There are days you blame yourself because you believe you cannot hear God. You fear His silence means distance. But that silence is not absence. It is the way He teaches you to walk by faith instead of by outward signs. When He wants to strengthen you, He gives you space to practice discernment. When He wants you to trust the guiding light within, He allows you to discover His will gradually and steadily. There are seasons when you think you must have chosen the wrong path because everything becomes difficult. But difficulty does not always mean you have erred. Sometimes difficulty is an essential part of the path God has ordained. Joseph was not in Egypt because he wandered off. He was there because God was positioning him for something that would later astonish even him. Moses was not wandering the wilderness because he lacked direction. He was there to hear God's voice from the burning bush. God's guidance does not always match human expectation, but it is always perfect within His purpose. When you walk with sincere intention, even if your discernment is not perfect, God still redirects your steps. He will not let you stray so far that you cannot return. A door that closes, a meeting postponed, an unexpected situation that changes your plans. All of these may be His ways of adjusting your course so that you remain on a better path. He does not shout, "Wrong way," instead. He subtly shifts circumstances, quietly guiding you to adjust without feeling forced. That is the guidance of a Father who understands you more deeply than you understand yourself. The most practical guidance God gives is not through circumstances but through the transformation of your desires until your heart wants what He wants. You once thought obedience began with knowing the right thing to do, but true obedience begins when God reshapes your desires. He not only calls you, He creates in you a longing for what He has called you to. And that is the deepest form of guidance. He leads you to where you belong by forming in you a natural inclination toward what is right, just as water naturally flows downward without needing to be pushed. Remember the times you felt a prompting from God that you could not explain. You thought you were responding to emotion, but looking back, you see that every prompting led to an outcome that could not have happened without His intervention. You were removed from unhealthy relationships that later you recognized as grace. You turned down a path not in your plans, yet it opened a new door. You paused at the right moment and avoided harm. These were not reflexes, they were the invisible movements of the One guiding your life. Many say that to know God's will, they need dramatic signs. But I want you to know that my will often comes first through peace, not spectacle. That peace does not come from circumstances. It comes because your choice aligns with what I am doing. When you step onto the right path, even if challenges await, your soul feels light, as if a clear stream were flowing through it. That is the clearest trace of God's direction. Likewise, when you step away from the direction He desires, your heart grows heavy, though you may not understand why. Not because He is angry, but because He wants you to stop before going too far. This heaviness comes quietly, and if you are attentive, you will recognize it not as ordinary anxiety but as an invitation to return. God does not block your way with a sword. He guides you through holy uneasiness. Often, God's guidance becomes most recognizable when you look back. You see how each event aligned, how small details contributed to something larger, how seemingly insignificant choices became the foundation for the future. Only God can weave all these fragments together perfectly. You cannot see the threads while you are in the flow. But when you enter a new season, you realize no step was wasted, no decision overlooked, no detour meaningless. The most beautiful truth about God's guidance is this: He does not merely lead you to the destination, He shapes you into the person who can stand in that destination. The journey is not only about reaching the goal, it is about transformation along the way. Everything He allows is crafted to refine, strengthen, heal, enrich, and deepen your heart. This is the most practical guidance of all, inner transformation moving alongside each step you take. God has never abandoned you at any crossroads. He is there in silence, in peace, in gentle warning, in quiet conviction. He guides not by shouting from heaven, but by placing within you a direction that, if you are honest with yourself, you will recognize as the voice of the One who loves you unfailingly. He does not simply guide you, He guides you every day, and He guides you even now. My child, you think that God's guidance only occurs when you stand at major crossroads, when you must make important decisions, or when life shifts unexpectedly. But God is not present only in those moments. He guides you even in the most ordinary settings, those days when nothing seems significant. Those hours when you walk without thinking anything sacred is happening. It is in that quietness that He is most practical, for He is working deeper than your eyes can perceive. There are days when everything feels slow and heavy, as if you are walking through a thick fog of exhaustion. You think God is silent and you are moving alone. But in those slow days, He is teaching you perseverance, not a rigid perseverance, but the kind that helps your soul stand firm even when no emotion lifts you. God does not want you to walk only when you feel inspired. He wants your endurance to become the foundation upon which greater things can be entrusted. My beloved child, every time you go through a season of delay, you may think you are being left behind. You try, you wait, you hope, yet the result still has not come. You feel yourself being worn down in the waiting. But the truth is that God is preparing something inside you, so you will have the capacity to receive what is coming. A door that opens too early can become a burden. A promise that arrives at the wrong time can cause you to break. Therefore, God's delay is never punishment, it is protection. He is teaching you to endure, to trust when you see nothing, to keep a tender heart even when reality feels dry and hard. Each day of waiting is a day He carves deeper maturity into your soul, a maturity you will one day be grateful for. God knows there are moments when you feel shoved out of your own plans. You built beautiful expectations, and then circumstances overturned them all. You hurt, you feel disappointed, and you wonder why God did not keep the path straight the way you imagined. But, my child, what you call collapse is sometimes the timely intervention of God. If that plan had continued, it might have led you into a deeper exhaustion. If that dream had come true at a time when you were not ready, it could have wounded your soul. God does not extinguish your dreams. He adjusts the timing and direction so that those dreams become a blessing and not a burden. The most practical guidance often comes through the things you did not expect. There are times when He does not add to your life, He takes away. Times when He does not open a way, He closes it. Times when He does not bring someone into your life, He lets them leave. And even though those things make your heart ache, they are a silent preparation for a future you do not yet understand. Every departure has a reason. Every ending has a purpose. If you look with spiritual eyes, you will see that every wound He allows has been carefully measured, so that nothing exceeds what you can bear, and every pain carries within it a lesson that ease could never teach. God also uses relational collisions to train your heart. Have you ever wondered why some people appear only for a short time yet leave a deep imprint? Why do some people exhaust you, but later you find yourself thankful for them because they were the ones through whom you were shaped? God uses people as mirrors so you can see what needs to be corrected, what needs to be released, and where you need to grow stronger. When someone hurts you, He does not only see your pain, He sees an opportunity for you to learn how to forgive, to rise again, and to see others with kinder eyes. When someone loves you rightly, He uses them to remind you that you are worthy of being cherished. God leads your life through other people, but no one owns your journey except Him. The maturity of the soul often comes through situations you perceive as chaotic. You see everything tangled like a knot of thread, but God sees a carefully ordered process. He allows you to enter the darker places within yourself and your sense of abandonment, your sense of not being enough, your sense of being misunderstood, not to make you sink, but to teach you to look to Him rather than to the praise or validation of others. Each time you make it through a long night without letting fear devour your heart, your soul grows a little stronger. Yet God does not only use trials to teach you, He also uses joy. There are days when you laugh from the heart, and in that laughter you do not realize that He has just granted your soul some rest. There are moments when your heart suddenly feels bright for no clear reason. That is not random positivity. That is the moment God pours His life into you. You feel light, not because life suddenly became easier, but because He has lifted your heart above the weight of what is happening around you. God also leads you into maturity through His silence. Many people fear that silence, but, my child, it is precisely in the silence that the heart learns to know Him more deeply. When He is silent, it does not mean He has gone away. It means He is letting you discover things that only stillness can reveal: your true longing, your faithfulness, your real motives. That silence is like shade that allows a tree's roots to grow deeper. It is not punishment, but a space where your soul develops strength from within. My child, one of the most practical ways God guides you is by helping you recognize what is not meant for you. He does not only open doors, He allows you to feel overwhelmed, confused, or lacking peace in the presence of things that do not belong to you. That is not weakness. It is the gift of discernment. And when you learn to pay attention to those gentle signals, you will avoid countless detours that would have brought you harm. God's guidance does not only take you to good places, it also keeps you from dangerous ones. He does not only draw valuable things into your life, He also prevents harmful things from taking root. He does not only outline the path, He places invisible boundaries that, if you pay attention, you will see are protecting you from countless unseen threats. Every time you pass through a difficult situation without becoming bitter, it is a sign that you are receiving God's guidance. Every time you choose to speak the truth even when it is hard, you are walking with Him. Every time you refuse to compromise with what is wrong, even in small matters, you are standing in His light. Every time you allow your heart to soften instead of shutting down after being hurt, you are moving in the direction He has opened. None of these steps is meaningless. They are all part of a journey He is weaving with deep love. God is not only leading you toward the future, He is using every movement of the present to shape you into the person He knows you can become. And when you understand this, you will no longer see trials as enemies. You will see them as tools through which God brings you into lasting maturity. He does not only guide you by the road you walk, He guides you by your very experiences, and He is doing that even now. My beloved child, when you look at your life as a series of scattered pieces, you may find yourself wondering what connects them all: the sudden joys, the long sorrows, the seasons of peace intertwined with stormy days, the unexpected turns you never planned for. From your perspective, they may appear to be isolated events, but from God's perspective, they are small stones being placed in exactly the right spots to form a mosaic only He has seen in full from the beginning. The practical guidance of God is not only that He points out where you should step, it is also that He is writing a story in which every detail has meaning, even if you do not see it yet. There are seasons when you feel lost in your own life, not because you are not trying, but because you cannot see the connection between what is happening and what you believe you were born to become. But, my child, there are no detours in God's plan, only paths designed to build in you a strength you could never possess if you only walked straight lines. What you call delay is often the very place where God is working most deeply in you, where He removes old layers to make room for something new to take root. You have walked through wounds that seemed as if they would never heal. You have asked, "Why did this happen to me?" And on those days when your tears flowed more than your words, you believed that pain was pointless. But I tell you this, not a single tear has fallen without God gathering it. Not a single pain has touched you without being transformed by Him over time. What once broke you now stands as evidence that He has lifted you up. The wound that once made you tremble now becomes the place where you feel His tenderness most clearly. Even the things you call loss do not lie outside of God's hand. Some things He takes away because they no longer nourish your soul. Some He allows them to leave because holding on to them would lead you off course. Some things you think have been stolen from you were, in truth, things from which you were rescued. Every departure is a reminder that God is clearing the way for something new to come, in something you could never receive if you kept clinging to the past. My beloved child, there are many moments when you cannot see the guidance of God simply because you are standing too close to your own story. An artist who paints cannot see the whole picture while pressing against the canvas. They see only the brushstroke in front of them. But when they step back, the entire portrait comes into view. Your life is the same. You see only what is happening today, but God sees what will unfold across your entire lifetime. He knows which lessons you need to stand firm in the future. He knows which experiences must prepare your heart for what is coming. He knows what must be refined within you so you can become the person He destined you to be before the foundations of the world. God does not guide you only through what is beautiful. He also guides you through what is difficult. He does not send storms, but He uses storms to make you stronger. He does not create darkness, but He uses the night to help you see the value of the light. He does not desire your tears, but He uses them to wash away what you cannot untangle on your own. In His hands, even the broken pieces become materials for beauty. Nothing is wasted. No experience is without purpose. Every moment has a place in His process. There are times you think you are on the wrong path simply because the ground beneath your feet is uneven. But the right path is not always smooth. The right path is the one where God is present, and His presence is not measured by how comfortable you feel, but by the way your soul finds strength even when you do not understand what is happening. When your heart does not collapse, although the winds are fierce. When your faith rises slowly, even though nothing around you has changed, these are signs that God is there, guiding you quietly, yet powerfully. Some things that happen in your life will only make sense much later. God does not ask you to understand everything now. He asks you to walk with Him. When you are faithful with the step in front of you, He will take responsibility for the steps you cannot yet see. And one day, when you look back, you will be amazed to see that nothing was meaningless. The detours, the seemingly random encounters, the moments you slowed down for no apparent reason, the dead ends that led to new openings, all of them were threads God wove into the tapestry of your life. Every child of God is a work under construction, a painting being completed, a story being written, and unlike human creations, this story is written with love, intention, and foreknowledge. No page is rushed. No chapter is wasted. No sentence is meaningless. There are dark sections, but they are not the ending. They are the backdrop for greater light in the next chapter. The guidance of God is not a straight line, it is a symphony. Some moments are quiet. Some are intense. Some are silent. Some are low. Some are soaring. But when taken together, they form a rhythm only He could compose. And you, with all you have lived through, are a vital note in that symphony. Without your part, the music would not be complete. Let your heart rest in this truth. God does not guide you only through His words. He guides you through your life itself. It is no accident that you stand where you stand. It is no accident that you have survived what you have survived. It is no accident that your heart remains soft despite what has wounded it. These are unmistakable signs of His sweet and deeply practical guidance. And as long as you keep walking, He will keep guiding. You cannot be lost within your own story, for the author is holding both the pen and the ending. My beloved child, when you touch the deepest places within yourself, the spaces holding memories you do not want anyone to enter, you begin to discover an astonishingly intimate aspect of God. He is the one who steps into wounds that seem impossible to heal, into shadows you hesitate to name. And He does so not with distant gestures, but with gentle, patient, profoundly human tenderness. There are pains you have carried for years, so long that they have woven themselves into the way you think, feel, and react, convincing you that this is just who I am. You have grown accustomed to avoiding, to laughing things off, to saying I'm fine, while something inside you quietly cracks. But, my child, God never designed your heart to coexist forever with fractures like these. He did not create you to live constantly bracing yourself. Even the parts you believe are permanently damaged, He intends to touch, to heal, to reorder. And He has been doing so far longer than you realize. I see the moments when a harmless phrase suddenly stings you because it brushes against an old wound you thought was buried. I see the times you react more strongly than the situation deserves, not because it is severe, but because it awakens memories you never had the chance to process in the light of truth. I see the nights when you lie quietly, with no tears falling, yet something in you is weeping because you do not know where to begin, whom to tell, or whether anyone could understand. It is in that wordless place that God shows the practicality of His love. He does not require you to articulate every feeling before He brings comfort. He understands even the emotions you cannot explain. He does not ask you to fix yourself before coming to Him. He does the opposite. He comes first. And then He gently leads you through the path of healing. He uses the smallest things, a song playing at the perfect moment, a verse from Scripture glowing as if written just for you, an encounter, a sincere question from someone who cares to remind you that He is present within the layered complexity of your emotions, not standing outside, observing. Some wounds come from people who were supposed to love you, support you, or protect you, but instead hurt you intentionally or unintentionally. You carry feelings of abandonment, dismissal, misunderstanding, and over time, you have learned to live with them as if they were permanent fixtures. To avoid further pain, you built invisible walls guarding yourself from the risk of being hurt again. You became cautious, distant, wary of trust, slow to open your heart. The world might tell you to be strong, to stay guarded, to build even higher walls. But God chooses a different way. He does not rebuke you for those walls. He understands why you built them. And He begins healing not by forcefully tearing them down in one night, but by gradually helping you feel that there is a safer place than any wall you could construct His presence. He gives you experiences of a love that does not blame, does not condition, does not shift with your moods, so your heart can slowly believe it no longer needs to remain locked. He allows you to open the door of your heart just a little within His presence, so you can discover this. There is one who sees everything within you and still never turns away. My beloved child, many times you think that healing must be a sudden experience, an emotional moment in which everything changes instantly. And yes, there are moments when that happens, but not always. Most of the time, God's healing unfolds like a quiet stream that never stops flowing, gradually softening the rough stones within your heart. Today, He helps you look at an old memory with a gentler gaze. Tomorrow, He gives you courage to speak of something you once hid. At another moment, He brings someone kind and attentive into your life so that through them, you can taste a portion of His goodness. And then one day, you realize you are no longer bound by what once held you captive, even though you cannot point to the exact moment the change occurred. That is the practicality of God. He heals according to a rhythm your soul can bear, in ways that do not overwhelm you, yet go deep enough so that the wound loses its power to govern your life. There were times you blamed yourself for not rising above quickly enough, for still being easily triggered by small things, for still feeling fragile even after knowing Him. But God does not stand there comparing your pace to anyone else's. He knows the exact history you carry, the environment in which you were formed, the experiences you endured that no one else has ever seen. He sees the entire picture, and thus His patience surpasses what any human heart could offer. And that patience is itself the evidence of His practicality. He does not tire when you speak of the same pain. He does not become frustrated when an old wound resurfaces. He does not give up when you take a few steps backward. He remains, calling you gently to take one more step, even if small, even if slow, so long as it is true. Sometimes the most practical healing God gives is not the erasing of a memory, but the changing of what that memory means inside you. What happened remains part of your history, but it no longer defines your worth. Words that once wounded you no longer have the authority to shape your identity. The dark, lonely, abandoned nights remain part of your story, but they become a backdrop against which His mercy shines even brighter. God does not rewrite your past, but He rewrites its meaning. He turns the places marked by shame or fear into places where His presence is now seen and remembered. God's practicality in healing is also seen in how He teaches you to live with a soft heart that is still well protected. He does not want you to live shut down, but He also does not want you to hand your trust to just anyone. He teaches you to build healthy boundaries, to say no when necessary, to walk away from places that fracture your soul, to choose companions who honor your worth. He does not merely comfort your pain, He teaches you how not to fall into the same wounds again. That is practical love, not only wiping tears, but guiding you so that you no longer have to cry for the same reasons. And after all this, the healing God gives you does not stop with you alone. When He touches the deepest wounds in you, He is also preparing you so that your story might encourage, comfort, and awaken hope in others. What you once thought was private shame becomes a stream that refreshes weary hearts. What you once saw as personal failure becomes living evidence that there is a God who can lift someone from the deepest pit. Every part of you that has been healed carries a message, a voice, a glimmer of light in a world that knows much darkness. God does not merely touch what you do outwardly. He goes directly to the center of your hurt, into the places you fear most, the places you think no one will ever understand. And there, He brings not punishment, not condemnation, but a love so patient, so gentle, so unwavering that it sits beside your wounded heart long enough for you to believe you are truly loved, truly valued, truly seen. And from that place, you begin to live again, not with a hardened shell, but with a heart once cracked, yet now held firmly in the hands of the one who never lets go. My beloved child, when God heals the deepest places in you, He does not simply touch the wound and depart. He continues a far more delicate work. He reshapes the way you see yourself. For years, you may have measured your worth through old events, a cutting remark from childhood, a failure you feared you'd never rise from, a rejected love that convinced you you were not worth keeping. These things became the distorted mirrors through which you viewed yourself, making you believe your value was determined by what you lost, by what others said, or by what you have not yet accomplished. But my child, God does not look at you through that mirror. He sees you through the eyes of the one who created you, and therefore His gaze is the truest of all. When He heals you, He does not merely want to ease your pain. He wants you to grasp the foundational truth that you hold value even before you achieve what you long for, that you are worthy of love even when you feel incomplete, that you carry a potential no wound can erase. God never intended for your pain to become your identity. He allows it only as raw material with which He shapes in you a deeper, stronger, more compassionate self. There are days you look in the mirror and see not enough, not talented enough, not beautiful enough, not strong enough, not holy enough, not as composed as others. You judge yourself by the world's standards and forget that God does not measure you that way. He does not ask whether you are perfect. He asks where your heart is leaning. He does not evaluate you by old mistakes. He sees you through the abilities He placed in you long before the world began. Each time He heals you, He renews your self-perception so that you live not as someone trying to prove worth, but as someone who knows worth has already been given. Part of healing is God freeing you from false labels others placed on you. Someone once said you were too weak and you believed them. Someone suggested you were unworthy and you carried that belief. Someone minimized you and you began to see yourself through their narrowed eyes. But now God is doing something entirely different. He is separating you from those limiting definitions. He teaches you that others' words cannot reach the core He crafted within you. And slowly you realize what others fail to see in you is often the very thing God treasures most. They saw weakness. He saw potential. They saw failure. He saw journey. They saw limits. He saw gifts waiting to be awakened. My beloved child, when His view of you slowly becomes your own view of yourself, you begin to live differently. You no longer strive to be acknowledged. You no longer force yourself to reach impossible standards. You no longer scramble to prove that you are worthy of love. Instead, you begin to live lighter and freer, because you understand that God has seen you in the fullness of who you are, the beautiful and the broken, the strong and the fragile, and He still calls you by name, still holds you in the palm of His hand. As the way you see yourself changes, the way you see others changes too. You begin to notice that many people carry wounds they have no language for. They react strongly not because you have done something wrong, but because an old memory in them has been stirred. They close their hearts not because you are unworthy, but because they have never learned to trust. And so you become more compassionate, more patient, more attentive, not because you are trying to be a better person by human standards, but because your heart has been softened in the hands of God. His healing in you begins to flow into the way you encounter the world around you. A vital part of this journey is that God leads you into the future as someone who has been healed, not someone perfect, but someone no longer held hostage by what once wounded them. You will realize that when He touches the deepest places in you, He is also opening doors you once feared to walk through. Simply because you believed you were not enough, what once intimidated you becomes an invitation to step beyond your comfort zone. Because you know you are not walking alone. He brings you into places you never thought you belonged, not to make you feel important, but to show you that He can use anyone, even someone who once believed they were nothing, to reveal His beauty. And the most wondrous truth is this: God heals you not only so you may be gentle, but so you may be strong, not with the rigid strength of armor, but with the soft strength of one who knows they are loved, guarded, and guided. It is the strength of someone who no longer fights merely to survive, but who can now walk through life with the freedom of a soul no longer constricted by fear. It is the strength of someone who knows they need to prove nothing, because their worth comes from the one who never changes. When God spends time healing you, He is also preparing you for new relationships, new assignments, new doors. He never allows you to step into a significant season with a heart still fractured. He mends every corner, soothes every bruise, removes the old words that once diminished you, so you can receive the new without being suffocated by the past. Others may only see outward change, but God knows the quiet movements within you, the moments you chose to forgive, the times you released an old expectation, the hours you looked at yourself through truth instead of self-blame. And He smiles. For these are the signs that you are being restored according to His design. The most beautiful moment is not when the wound disappears, but when the wound becomes the very place where God's light shines the brightest, not because He delights in your suffering, but because the place that once lay in ruins becomes living proof that His power surpasses every hurt you have ever endured. And as you walk with a heart being healed, You no longer carry only your story. You carry the story of a God who knows how to touch human pain with practical tenderness, who rebuilds souls with persistent love, who fashions new life out of what others assumed was beyond repair. And from here, a new chapter begins, one in which you walk not only as someone healed, but as someone living in true freedom, freedom from fear, from the past, from the labels, from the voices that once bound you. It is the freedom only God can give, and He is leading you into it day by day. My beloved child, God's healing is not merely His touch upon what hurts in you. It is His giving you the ability to live a life no longer governed by what once controlled you. Healing is the beginning, not the end. And now, He leads you into the deepest part of the journey, learning to live as someone restored. What you endured has not made you weaker, it has sharpened you. Each time you faced the truth, instead of avoiding it, your courage was strengthened. Each time you chose forgiveness while the pain was still present, your heart opened just a little more. Each time you stood in peace instead of panic, your faith grew. These small actions, like stones that seem insignificant, are the very foundation upon which you will build a life strong from within. God is doing something far greater than you can see. He is creating in you a durable inner strength, a maturity no storm can destroy. You once feared that having a soft heart would make you vulnerable, but now, through His healing, you understand a soft heart is not a weak heart. It is a heart protected by the peace of God. You no longer live in self-defense. You learn to open your heart with discernment. You learn to love without losing yourself. You learn to grow close without blending into what harms your soul. This is the maturity only God can shape, a harmony of compassion and wisdom, of tenderness and strength. Living in healing means you begin choosing what brings life rather than what drains your soul. You know how to step away from conversations that chill your spirit. You know how to create distance from people who weigh your heart down. You know how to say no without guilt, because you understand that guarding your heart is not selfishness but obedience to what God teaches above all else. Guard your heart. You stop choosing what is easy. You choose what is right, not because you want to appear strong, but because the peace within you is worth more than any approval others can give. My beloved child, when God heals you, He also reawakens your ability to dream. There are dreams you once abandoned not because they were unworthy, but because you believed you no longer deserved them. You once thought your past had stripped you of the right to hope for anything beautiful. But now, as God renews your heart, He places within you desires that have been purified, longings that come from Him rather than from lack. Slowly, you begin to feel joy again when thinking about the future, a quiet hope rising when you look ahead. You no longer assume that goodness is not for someone like you. You begin to understand that God is leading you into a season where He wants you not merely to survive, but to blossom. God does more than free you from fear. He trains you to recognize the voice of fear when it tries to return. Healing does not turn you into someone who is never tested. It turns you into someone who knows how to stand firm whenever the test comes. When darkness inches toward you, you notice it sooner than before. When a careless word stirs an old ache, you no longer collapse as you once did, because you know now that your worth is no longer determined by others. When the past knocks on your door, you know how to turn back to the truth instead of letting fear dictate your direction. This is the evidence of a soul that has been strengthened. My child, you will also discover that after healing, you no longer look toward the future with caution, but with expectation. Not naive expectation, but a hope grounded in the faithfulness of God. You stop assuming that what went wrong before will repeat itself. You begin to see the possibility of goodness. You do not fear loss, because you trust that God gives and takes away in the way that serves you best. You no longer worry about what you cannot control, because you trust the one who holds your future is the same one who has carried you through every season before. You begin to live with the awareness that your life no longer revolves around your pain, but around the presence of the one who healed you. You do not live to avoid being hurt. You live to reflect his love. You do not live in constant defense. You live to testify that there is a God who turns the seemingly irreparable into something unexpectedly radiant. You realize your story is not merely your own. It is the story of grace. As you walk as someone healed, those around you will sense something different, not because you are flawless, but because the peace of God in you cannot be hidden. They will notice the way you listen, the gentleness in your words, the patience in your reactions, the authenticity with which you lift others up. True healing does not produce showmanship. It produces a profound quietness. People may never know with their eyes what you have come through, but they will feel that something in you no longer belongs to the shadows. The healing God gives you transforms not only your present, it reshapes your future. You no longer build your life on self-protection, but on trust. You no longer avoid relationships. You begin to choose healthy ones. You no longer fear stepping into new territory, because you know you are never stepping alone. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because the one who understands you perfectly walks with you. You no longer allow the past to rule, because you have placed authority in the hands of the one who heals. Remember, healing is not a straight path. There will be days when you feel you have come far, and days when you feel as though you are back at the beginning. This does not mean you failed. It means you are alive, learning, and growing. God does not measure you by fleeting perfection. He measures by your faithfulness in the long journey, and he will not abandon the work he has begun. Every step you take, trembling or confident, rests securely in his hands. When you look back, you will see God has not only healed you, he has been forming someone new, strong, profound, discerning, full of peace, the person you never thought you could become. But he saw this version of you from the very beginning, my beloved child. When a soul is healed, when a heart is restored, when wounds no longer hold your steps hostage, that is also the moment God begins to lead you into a new dimension, the purpose he wove into your life from the beginning of time. For God does not only desire your strength, he desires your participation in his plan. He does not merely want you restored, he wants you positioned in the role he has prepared. And that purpose is not distant or abstract. It is something he reveals little by little through familiar experiences, daily choices, and crossroads that seem ordinary yet carry his fingerprints. Before you ever spoke of dreams or direction, God had already planted in you the first seeds of purpose. There are things that stirred your heart in childhood for reasons you could not explain. There are matters that grieve you deeply, while others remain unmoved. There are causes that ignite your spirit in a way no one else fully understands. These are not coincidences. These are the early whispers of purpose. God places in each person a unique spiritual sensitivity, a kind of response only they will have, through which he guides them toward the place they were born to occupy. What moves your heart is not merely emotion, it is the divine compass he buried in your spirit long before you knew how to name it. My beloved child, purpose is not a destination you must rush toward. It is a journey God leads you through, one chapter at a time. For that reason, he does not require you to understand everything from the beginning. He simply wants you to be faithful with the step before you. You learn to do the small things well before the greater things arrive. You learn to listen before you speak. You learn to observe before you act. You learn to stand firm in the dark before stepping into the light. Every season of your life is a classroom designed to prepare you for the role He has already seen you will carry. You may think the small tasks you are doing now have nothing to do with your future. But God does not work according to human calculations. He uses the small to train you for the great. He uses the ordinary to build faithfulness. He uses the unnoticed to teach you to live in depth rather than in applause. One day you will look back and marvel that every skill you have now was shaped in seasons that seemed unrelated. All of it has been preparation for what He is building within you. My child, God never leads you in a way that ends in confusion. Sometimes He opens a wide door so you know it is time to enter. Sometimes He closes a door you have knocked on many times to protect you from what you are not yet ready for. Sometimes He lets you walk into a path so you can discover it is not where you belong, and that very misalignment sharpens your discernment. He is not afraid to let you learn through experience, because He knows He can redirect any step. What matters is not that you always choose correctly, but that you always return to Him for guidance. You pray for a breakthrough, but everything remains quiet. My child, that quietness may itself be grace. God is doing a work inside you that has not yet appeared outside. Purpose is never built on haste. It is built on maturity. He must take time to remove the things that would hinder you in the next season. He must refine your attitude, your motives, your thoughts, and your habits so that when the door opens, you enter not with impulsiveness, but with wisdom. Slow is not backward. Slow may be the perfect pace for distance. God reveals purpose in the most practical ways. He does not demand that you abandon everything to chase a vague ideal. He begins by clarifying what you are willing to offer right where you are. Purpose is not in changing locations. Purpose is in changing how you see the place you stand. When your heart is correctly positioned, the ordinary becomes the arena of His intention. When you handle the small with faithfulness, He adds responsibility. When you take one step of faith, He widens your vision. At times you think purpose belongs only to the strong, the talented, the successful, but God chooses differently. He does not look for the perfect, He looks for the willing. He does not need you to have every skill right now. He needs a heart that says, Lord, teach me how to live. Purpose does not begin with ability. It begins with surrender. And in that surrender, God places inside you capacities you never knew were there. There are moments when He stirs your heart toward a need in the world, not simply for you to feel compassion and move on, but for you to recognize that a part of your purpose is awakening. Purpose always begins with empathy, with seeing a problem and hearing a quiet voice within saying, you can help here. When you step into those places where kindness is needed, where wisdom is needed, where a serving hand is needed, you are naturally stepping into the territory of the purpose God prepared for you. My child, purpose is not the pressure to accomplish something grand. Purpose is living true to what God has planted in you. It is not striving to become someone else. It is becoming fully yourself in His design. And as you live in that truth, your life becomes a living testimony of His wisdom, His keeping, and His practical guidance. The most beautiful truth is this: your purpose is not separate from God. Your purpose is in Him. When you draw near to Him, you draw near to your calling. When you understand Him more, you understand yourself more. When you walk with Him, you naturally walk into the right path, for He Himself is the way. Rest assured you cannot lose your purpose as long as you walk with the One who created it. He is still working. He is still preparing. He is still opening doors you do not yet see. And He will lead you step by step into all He ordained for you from the very beginning. My beloved child, when God calls you into the purpose He designed for you, He does not throw you into it and leave you to fend for yourself. He leads you through each step, each choice, each opportunity, because purpose is not a destination, but a way of living aligned with His intention in every moment. Many believe purpose only reveals itself in monumental events, but God unveils it through ordinary things, the way you treat a stranger, the way you remain faithful in small responsibilities, the way you listen to the gentle prompting of the Holy Spirit, and the way you respond when your plans fall apart. These seemingly insignificant details are the very places where He trains your soul to walk in wisdom rather than old instincts. You cannot enter what God has prepared without recognizing which opportunities are from Him and which are distractions dressed as blessings. A wide door is not always a God-opened door. A prestigious opportunity is not always Spirit-sent. Some things look like favor but are subtle diversions. Others look small but are foundational for a new season. And so God teaches you to distinguish between His call and ambition's call, between the Holy Spirit's prompting and the pressure of expectation. Discernment does not come from knowledge or experience alone. It comes from nearness. The closer you are to Him, the more attuned the ears of your soul become. The more you listen to Him in small things, the more clearly you recognize Him in the great ones. The more you respond to His guidance in simple matters, the stronger you stand in weighty decisions. Purpose is not discovered only through action. It is shaped through communion. When your heart beats in rhythm with His, you do not merely know what is right, you desire what is right. His will becomes the natural inclination of your spirit. There will be times when you stand between two paths, both seemingly good. In such moments, He does not leave you guessing. He gives you peace like a red thread guiding your steps. That peace is not mere comfort. It is a quiet certainty that you are standing where He wants you to stand. If your heart feels light when you consider a direction, even if it is challenging, this is often His affirmation. If you feel a weight when considering another option, even if it appears reasonable, this may be His warning. God does not guide through panic. He guides through peace. Peace is the compass of those who walk in His will. But entering your purpose also means accepting the seasons He leads you through. Each season teaches you something about Him and about yourself. There are seasons He teaches diligence, showing you that purpose cannot be built on laziness. Seasons He teaches rest, showing you that purpose cannot survive on exhaustion. Seasons He teaches waiting, proving that not every door should open immediately. Seasons He teaches release, reminding you that not every relationship is meant to travel the whole journey. And seasons He teaches courage, revealing that purpose requires boldness, not perfection. God knows that you cannot carry everything with you as you step into the mission He has appointed for you. And so, He allows what no longer belongs to your future to fall from your hands, not to make you lose, but to make room for what He desires to give. Some people leave. Some relationships shift. Some plans must be laid down. Some old passions quietly fade. Yet none of these losses are deficiencies. They are arrangements. Purpose is not only about what you receive, it is also about what you release, so you are not pulled back into chapters that have already closed. There will be moments when God leads you into places where you do not feel capable of standing, not because you are ready, but because He wants you to know that He alone is your strength. He wants you to walk not with confidence in your own ability, but with the awareness that He will supply every word, every idea, every direction. When you step onto new ground, your feet may tremble, but God often begins His greatest chapters with trembling steps. He does not demand perfect steps, only obedient ones. On the journey of purpose, you will encounter opposition. Not everyone will understand what God has placed on your heart. Not everyone will see what He is doing within you. Some will question. Some will misinterpret. Some will analyze your path through the lens of their own experience. But the purpose God assigns to you is not meant to be universally approved. It requires agreement from the one who called you. And He will guard the purpose He entrusts. He will silence any voice that does not come from Him. He will remove unnecessary resistance. He will lift you when you feel pressed down. He will reopen paths when all routes seem blocked. His purpose cannot be hindered by human intention. Remember, purpose is not a pressure, it is a privilege. You are not meant to strain under the weight of a task. You are invited to participate in a story greater than yourself. And each time you take a step, God does not ask you to step boldly. He asks you to step faithfully. Faithfulness is the foundation upon which He increases your responsibility. There is something else. Your purpose is never isolated from others. God does not craft personal calling so you may walk alone. He brings the right people, the right relationships, the right community so that through them you may receive the support, encouragement, correction, and strengthening you could never produce by yourself. You cannot walk on purpose without companions. God uses His people to refine you, uplift you, and activate hidden parts of your design. And when you find those people, your soul will feel as though it has found a new home. Purpose is not something you chase. It is something you live each day when you allow God to lead, renew, use, and place you exactly where you need to be. Purpose is the harmony between a willing heart and a guiding hand. Purpose is the alignment between what God plants and how you respond. When you live on purpose, life stops feeling tangled. You will know where to stand, what to say, when to be silent, when to move, and how long to wait, not because you are wiser, but because you are connected to the one who sees the entire path long before you take your first step. My beloved child, when God leads you deeper into the purpose He ordained for you, the first thing He renews is not your opportunities but your inner being, so that you may walk in the light of your calling without being pulled backward by old limitations. He knows true purpose is never merely what you do, it is the person you become. And so He begins by touching the hidden corners of your heart, the fear of being judged, the longing for approval, the old memories quietly shaping your reactions, the wounds you thought had faded but still influence how you see others. God does not let these things hold you hostage. He brings you to a place where you can see them so you can be free. There are parts of you He wants to heal, so you do not step into the future with a heart still marked by the past. Not to revive old pain, but to release you from its power. Pain left unhealed will reappear in new forms, even in the middle of a new assignment. And so, at times God allows circumstances that touch these darkened corners not to hurt you, but to bring them into the light, to show you where He is working, where renewal is needed, where release must happen. What remains hidden will cause you to stumble. What is revealed in the light can finally be healed. God's purpose is not built on concealment, but on honesty before Him. Understand this: some things cannot go with you into the new season, even if they once gave you comfort. Some mindsets once protected you in pain, but now restrict you on purpose. Some habits once helped you survive, but now hinder your spiritual maturity. Some emotional boundaries once kept you safe, but now shrink the canvas of what God wants to paint through your life. To go farther, God will invite you to put these things down. When He asks you to release something, it is never to take away what is good, It is to give you something better, something fuller, freer, more aligned with His heart. Letting go is not loss, it is liberation. On the journey of purpose, you will discover that honesty with yourself is an act of reverence toward God. Not honesty before people, but honesty in the hidden chambers of your heart, where you dare to tell God that you are tired, that you fear failure, that you are unsure of your ability, that you do not feel ready for something too great. God is not intimidated by your weakness. He simply does not want you to hide it from Him. True strength is not pretending to be fine. True strength is allowing Him to see where you need His intervention. When you try to be strong in your own way, you exhaust yourself. But when you admit your weakness before Him, His power is fully revealed. And through that very brokenness, the purpose He weaves within you becomes stronger and more enduring. There will be days when you think that walking on purpose means being constantly passionate, constantly enthusiastic, constantly seeing results. But purpose is not sustained by emotion. It is sustained by consistency. Consistency is not always feeling strong. It is choosing to do what is right, even when nothing seems to be changing. Every faithful step you take today is laying the foundation for tomorrow's open doors. You have no idea which seed is taking root in silence. You have no idea what God is shaping while you remain steady in the small tasks. You need only trust that God does not overlook a single act of obedience. No prayer is forgotten. No sacrifice is ignored. No tears are wasted. Everything you place in His hands bears fruit in ways you cannot measure. One of the quietest challenges on the path of purpose is comparison. When you see others entering seasons of success, receiving open doors, gaining recognition, or being elevated, your soul may shift without you realizing it. But purpose is not a race to see who arrives first. Purpose is a personal journey God leads you through at His own pace. The moment you compare, you lose your peace, your focus, and your joy. And God wants you to know this: what He is doing in someone else is not the measure of what He is doing in you. He does not use their story to define you. He does not use their success to determine your worth. He does not use their timing to alter the timing He ordained for you. If you live looking at others, you will step out of the path He crafted uniquely for you. But if you live looking at Him, you will always be in the right place, at the right time, in the right way. Here is the hidden truth of purpose. It is not the grand doors that define your calling, but the small decisions repeated daily. The way you keep your heart pure when no one is watching. The way you choose forgiveness when you are wounded. The way you remain kind even when kindness is not returned. The way you stay silent when He tells you to. The way you speak when He urges you to. The way you stand in truth even when misunderstood. These are the things that form the spiritual structure upon which God can build greater things. He does not look for the flawless. He looks for the faithful. He does not look for the impressive. He looks for the trustworthy. Those who are faithful in the small things will become strong in the greater ones. Remember, God's guidance does not always come through a clear voice. Often, He leads you through silence, a silence not because He is distant, but because He is strengthening your discernment. When you do not hear Him, you begin to listen more attentively. When you do not see a sign, you begin to seek more deeply. When you do not know the next step, you begin to rely more fully. In that silence, God teaches you a kind of maturity no season of ease could ever produce. Silence is not the absence of God, it is His most profound classroom. And when He brings you into the later stages of your purpose, you will understand something you once lacked the experience to grasp. Purpose is not what you accomplish, but who you become while following his voice. The doors he opens are additions. The opportunities he provides are tools. But the true masterpiece is your soul refined, purified, transformed to reflect the character of the one who called you. When you step into what he intended, people will not only see results, they will see the imprint of God on your life. Purpose does not begin with human strength. It begins with surrender. Not with proving anything, not with being strong enough, not knowing every next step. You need only say, "Lord, here I am," and God will do the rest. He will usher you into a new season. He will clarify what is unclear. He will remove what is unnecessary. He will protect you from what is harmful. He will open a way where no way exists. He will fulfill what he has promised. My beloved child, when God brings you into new territory in the journey of purpose, he not only gives guidance, he teaches you to live each day with the awareness that he is present in the very center of what seems ordinary. Many seek him only in climactic moments, in miracles, in emotional surges, in obvious signs. But those who belong to him learn that he is also found in the slow steps of morning, in the long exhale after a weary day, in the tiny decision between two seemingly insignificant options, in the pause when your heart hesitates, in the silence you mistake for emptiness but is actually filled with quiet intervention. God is not only the God of grand wonders, he is the God who walks with you on the dusty road of everyday life. Often you do not recognize him because you expect him to come in the extraordinary, while he chooses to come in the simple. Sometimes he answers not with events that change overnight, but by softening your heart, by sending clarity into your thoughts, by giving you a peace you cannot explain, or by stopping you for a moment when you are about to rush. It is the whisper Elijah heard, not in the wind that shattered rocks, not in the earthquake or fire, but in the gentle breeze, the kind only the attentive soul notices. God always speaks, but his voice is never loud. He desires to be known not through dramatics, but through intimacy. God not only reveals the grand purpose, he teaches you to walk faithfully in the small steps so your soul becomes steadfast. There will be days when you feel clear progress, but there will also be days when nothing seems to move. Yet not every day is meant to shine. Some days are designed to teach you to stand firm, to maintain trust, to support yourself with his promises. The days that feel empty are often the most important, for that is when the roots of faith grow deep. Without seasons of silence, you would never learn to distinguish God's voice from fleeting emotion. Without seasons of waiting, you would never know how persistent his love truly is. Growth does not happen in flashes of brilliance. It happens in quiet perseverance. Often you think you are stuck, but in reality God is strengthening what no one sees. The way you handle pressure, the way you adapt when plans change, the way you preserve peace in chaos, the way you guard your heart when facing temptation, the way you choose silence over pointless argument, the way you clear your mind so you can hear him more clearly. Each of these is spiritual training. He does not give new doors to an unprepared soul. He does not place you in a higher position until your heart is deep enough to carry it. And in the ordinary days you are living now, he is refining you so you can sustain what he is about to entrust to you. Remember that purpose is never separate from the trials God allows to come your way. Some trials reveal what you must release. Some highlight what you must hold on to. Some prove that your faith is rooted not in outcomes, but in him. God does not use trials to frighten you. He uses them to strengthen you. When the waves rose, Jesus did not tell the disciples to avoid the storm. He taught them to recognize that he was in the boat. That alone was enough to steady them. And so it is with you. My child, He will not keep every storm from touching you, but He will keep those storms from swallowing you. What determines your safety is not the strength of the wind, but the one who is in the boat with you. God is so practical that He teaches you to walk through fear in the ordinary spaces of life. He does not force you to face something too large when your heart is not ready. Instead, He gently opens small situations that help you practice placing your trust in Him. A difficult conversation you've avoided, a new step at work, an apology you need to speak, a decision you must make without seeing the outcome, a relationship that needs new boundaries. He leads you through small things so your heart expands. So you may know that fear is not your king, He is. The courage He builds within you is not recklessness, but obedience that rises above old limitations. There are moments when you fall silent because you do not know how to pray, yet your heart is heavy. Nights when you do not have enough words to express your pain. Moments when your thoughts swirl so chaotically that all you can do is sit in quiet and endure. But God sees all of it, and He responds not with many words, but with His presence, the very thing that softens your heart, draws tears that heal instead of breaking you, and steadies your mind little by little. You may not hear His voice, but you know He is there because the weight in your spirit grows lighter for reasons you cannot explain. That is God stepping into the room of your soul. In the moments that make you think God is far away, He is in fact sitting closer than ever. But you do not recognize Him because you are searching for Him through feelings rather than through trust. Sometimes He is silent not because He has withdrawn, but because He wants you to know that maturity does not come from constant reassurance. Maturity comes when you choose to lean on His character rather than your shifting emotions. The newly converted rely on feelings, the mature rely on His faithfulness. And my child, He has never once been unfaithful. One of the most practical ways God works in your life is by placing you in environments that require your growth. Sometimes He puts you where you must learn patience. Sometimes He surrounds you with people who test your peace, so you learn to keep your heart from being shaken. Sometimes He places you where you must speak truth instead of choosing people-pleasing. Sometimes He teaches you to set boundaries. Sometimes He gives you a new role so you may learn to serve with humility. Every environment is a classroom, and He is the teacher who never skips a lesson if it is essential for your future. God's practicality is also revealed through the encounters He arranges. Not every person who enters your life is accidental. Some come to strengthen your spirit. Some come to teach you patience. Some come to reflect back to you what you need to change. Some come to open a new door. Some come to test your faithfulness. And some come only for a season, not for a lifetime. When you understand this, you will neither cling too tightly nor release too quickly. You will learn that God uses people to shape people specifically, intentionally, and with exquisite care. And the most practical thing God does is this: He makes you more like Him through each circumstance. No one becomes like Jesus by knowledge alone. People become like Him through daily surrender. Your ultimate purpose is not merely to complete a task, but for your life to mirror the one you follow. When you love the hard to love, you resemble Him. When you forgive even before the pain fully fades, you resemble Him. When you stay silent in the face of arguments not worth fighting, you resemble Him. When you guard your purity in temptation, you resemble Him. When you keep walking, even when you cannot see, you resemble Him. And when you place your trust fully in Him rather than in yourself, you become the kind of person through whom His purpose can flourish. My beloved child, God is not only present in emotional moments, or in seasons when you feel supernaturally upheld. He is present in the most complex intersections of your life, the places where faith meets reality, where hope meets disappointment, where your desires meet what truly happens. Many believe my presence is clearest when things go well, but the truth is that I often work most powerfully in the quiet seasons, where you see no result, yet are being transformed more deeply than ever before. In the inner territories you have not named, I am discerning, arranging, pruning, and renewing so your soul can stand firm when I enlarge the borders of your life. You long for an open door, but all you encounter is delay. You seek confirmation, but I answer with silence. You hope for quick progress, yet your steps slow to the point where it feels like nothing is moving. You think delays mean I am inactive, but in my eyes, delay is the tool that deepens you, strengthens you, and matures you. Hurry creates temporary results. Steadiness creates foundations that endure. When I slow your pace, it is not to discourage you, but to teach you how to walk with me rather than running to the rhythm of your anxiety. God is so practical that He refuses to build you upon unstable foundations and impulsive emotions. Hurried ambition, the hunger for validation, or attractive but empty ideas. He digs beneath the layers you believe are solid, finds the fractures you did not notice, and repairs them before you step into a new season. You may not like this process, because it touches the unsteady places within, but it is there that God shapes you into someone who can carry the weight, the blessing, and the influence your future will require. You cannot bear a great responsibility with a soul that is not yet steady. The practicality of God is also revealed in the way He adjusts the motives in your heart. Not every desire you have is wrong, but some desires are not yet refined. Sometimes you long for something good, but for reasons that are not yet pure. Sometimes you want to step through a door because it will make you visible, recognized, praised, rather than because it will glorify my name. Sometimes you want to stay in a place because it feels safe, not because God wants you there. Sometimes you want to leave a place because it is difficult, not because God is calling you out. That is why He touches your motives, so that you do not live driven by emotion, but led by the illumination of the Holy Spirit. He wants your heart to be pure, so that the purpose placed on your life will not be mixed with ambitions that do not come from Him. My child, sometimes God allows certain people to drift away from you, not because they are bad, but because their hearts are no longer aligned with the path you are about to walk. Some people are sent only to help you cross a particular season, not to stay forever. Some held an important role in your past, but are no longer suitable for your future. He closes those relationships not to leave you alone, but to keep you from leaning in the wrong direction. He wants the ones who walk beside you to be those who can uphold you, not pull you back into chapters that have ended. I want those who journey with you to honor the work I am building in you, not exploit it, not hinder it, not distort the calling I have placed upon your life. God is also practical in the way He teaches you to handle harsh words, unfair reactions, and unnecessary misunderstandings. You desire to be treated kindly, but sometimes He allows the opposite to happen in order to train your spirit, so you learn to stand firm without being destroyed by human voices. When you learn not to let people's opinions define your worth, you will step into a new freedom in which you know that your value does not lie in praise or criticism, but in His gaze. Maturity does not come when everyone agrees with you. It comes when you keep walking the right path, even when no one understands you. And one day you will realize that those misunderstandings were a kind of armor, protecting you from dependence on the approval of others. The testing that comes from God makes you stronger. The attacks of darkness drain you. God's testing builds you up. The attacks of darkness try to break your faith. God's testing draws you closer to me. The attacks of darkness make you want to run from me. When you feel your soul tightening under confusion and despair, run to Him, because He will give you discernment to know what He is using to shape you and what you must stand against in prayer and in steadfastness to the truth. Remember, God does not only want you strong, He wants you deep. He wants you to love with wisdom, to serve with discernment, to sacrifice without losing your God-given worth, to listen without losing your boundaries, to give without destroying yourself. Goodness is not about making everyone happy. Goodness is living faithfully to what God has placed within you, even when it requires you to say no to invitations that do not come from Him. When you learn this, you will no longer be dragged into emotional whirlwinds and obligations I never asked of you. You will walk lighter, clearer, more grounded, because you know what belongs to you and what does not. God is also practical in how I adjust the rhythm of your life. Sometimes I let one of your plans collapse, not to disappoint you, but to break a frantic pace that is exhausting you. Sometimes I keep you in a season longer than you expected, not because you've been forgotten, but because what I want to establish in you is not yet complete. Sometimes I slow you down, not because you are on the wrong path, but because I want your inner rhythm to match the strength you will need in the next chapter. When you live in a hurry, you lose spiritual sensitivity. When you slow down with me, you recover the ability to hear my voice in the small things others overlook. It is precisely in the most practical things how you respond when you are hurt, how you think before you speak, how you manage your time, how you face fear, how you care for your body, how you forgive, how you set boundaries, how you rest, that I am gradually forming in you a life of order, not an order imposed by human pressure, but the order of the peace I give. And when your inner world carries that order, the chaos outside will no longer so easily control you. The practicality of God is not about making everything easy. It is about making you steady, grounded, clear-sighted, persevering, and full of strength so you can face any circumstance without losing the essence I have placed in you. I do not promise to keep you from every trial, but I do promise that you will never be alone and that everything I do is for your long-term good. God does not promise that you will never weep, but He promises that your tears will never be wasted. Believe that God is working even in what you cannot see. Believe that the seemingly quiet days are the days when He is moving powerfully beneath the surface. Believe that He is leading you into a life where His presence is not only something you feel, but something you practically experience in each step you take. And believe that the maturity you are carrying today is precisely the preparation He is giving you for the next chapter, a chapter in which the light of God will be revealed powerfully through you. My beloved child, God is not only present in what you do, He is present in who you are, in the way you think, the way you feel, the way you interpret the events around you. Many follow Him with their actions while forgetting that the spiritual journey also includes allowing me to transform your patterns of thought, your emotional rhythms, and your inner perceptions. And you, if you want to experience me fully, must let me touch the deep layers you keep hidden, the places you usually try to manage on your own, endure alone, or conceal even from yourself. God sees the nights when you lie down with a quiet anxiety you do not know how to name. He sees the mornings you wake up with a heaviness, even though nothing specific seems to have happened. He sees the moments when you are so tired that you do not even want to pray. and the times you condemn yourself for that. But He does not stand at a distance, waiting for you to become strong. He draws nearest when your soul is at its weakest. God does not require beautifully crafted words for your sadness. He only asks that you let Him see it. If you can simply say, "Lord, I don't know why I feel this way," God already has a place from which to begin healing you. I want you to understand that the way God works in you does not always look like a sudden, obvious change. Often, it is more like an underground stream, quietly softening hard, dry soil. You will not hear loud cracking sounds, but you will notice that the fear that once made you tremble no longer rules you as it did. You will realize that words which once cut deeply no longer shatter the peace He has planted within you. You will see that relationships which once stole your sleep no longer hold the same power over you, not because you have become numb, but because God is renewing your sense of worth in your own eyes. You are no longer as insecure as before, because you are beginning to see yourself through His gaze. There are things God must uproot from your mind before He can sow something new. He must pull out the false beliefs you have unknowingly accepted from careless words, from painful experiences, from judgments that did not come from me. He must uproot the belief that you must be perfect to be loved. He must uproot the belief that you are worthless when you are weak. He must uproot the idea that you must hold everything together by your own strength. He must uproot the fear that one small mistake will cause every good thing to collapse. My child, God cannot build something solid on a cracked foundation. He must repair the foundation before He raises the house. There are changes God brings forth within you that do not come from your effort, but from your closeness with Him. When you remain in God, the things that once made you insecure will no longer carry the same power. When you quiet your heart before Him, the things that once created chaos within you slowly lose their ground. When you allow God to lead you into places of peace, the memories that once frightened you begin to fade in their influence. This is not because you tried hard to forget. It is because God is writing a new chapter so powerful that the old one naturally ceases to be the center. You often blame yourself for emotional reactions that are not ideal, for sudden outbursts, for moments when you feel you are not as spiritual as you should be. But God wants you to remember that He does not build you through condemnation. He builds you through patience. A young tree is not scolded when it bends in the wind. It is given support until its roots strengthen. You are the same. God does not see you through the lens of someone already complete. He sees you as someone growing. And every imperfect expression is simply a sign of where He is currently working. The practicality of God is also revealed in how He lets you see what is really operating deep within your soul. At times you react strongly to minor situations, not because they truly deserve such a response, but because they touch wounds still unhealed. He lets you see this, not to shame you, but to show you where you need Him more. At times you withdraw not because people truly hurt you, but because you fear rejection. At times you feel confused not because the situation is complicated, but because you are viewing it through an old lens. God reveals these things not to scrutinize you, but to free you. You think joy comes from favorable circumstances, but God says this to you: true joy comes from knowing that He is present in every circumstance. When you know He is with you at work, you will no longer fear making mistakes. When you know He is in your relationships, you will no longer tiptoe out of fear of disappointing others. When you know He walks with you in every step, you will no longer be anxious about the future. Joy does not come when everything stabilizes, but when you realize that God Himself is your stability. And when that joy blooms, you will face life not with a posture of bracing yourself, but with a posture of receiving. I want to make every moment of your life a place where I reveal myself. When you face a decision, I want you to ask me before you ask about your fear. When your thoughts begin to race, I want you to pause and remember that I, not you, govern time. When you feel lonely, I want you to know that loneliness is not evidence of my distance, but an invitation to deeper intimacy. When you ache because of a relationship, I want you to know that the hurt is not the ending. It is the place where I rebuild your trust through my gentleness. Everything I am doing in your heart, quiet, gradual, unseen, is aimed at one thing, that you may become someone capable of living fully in the purpose I designed for you, without being pulled back by what you once feared, once believed wrongly, or once carried. I want you strong but not hardened, soft but not weak, discerning but not anxious, humble but not self-diminishing, loving without losing boundaries, forgiving without losing your identity, willing to step forward without losing your peace. Believe that I am doing this work for you even now. In the midst of vague thoughts and unnamed emotions, I am weaving your soul with threads of endurance so that one day, when you look back, you will understand that every second, every moment, every experience, big or small, was in my hands and contributed to the person I have seen from the beginning. And you will know that I am not only the giver of purpose, but the one who transforms you to live that purpose without trembling or regret. My beloved child, when the long journey of recognizing God in every moment has brought you into a new depth of maturity, He begins whispering something deeper into your soul, the unity between your heart and mind. For your journey does not end at knowing I am present, nor at trusting my intervention, nor even at sensing my guidance. It moves toward a place where your soul aligns with the rhythm of my heart, where what you desire no longer stands apart from what I desire, and what you seek is no longer foreign to what I prepare. God wants to bring you to a place where His presence is not only your comfort, but the atmosphere you breathe, the light in which your soul discovers its truest shape. There is a quiet transformation that takes place in those who walk deeply with God, and you are standing at the threshold of it. At first you seek Him for help, then you seek Him for direction, then you learn to seek Him to be steady, to be healed, to not be ruled by emotions. But now, God invites you into another dimension, where you seek Him not only for what He does, but for who He is. As time passes, when you let God lead you, your heart will begin to love His presence more than the blessings that come from His hand. You will find that peace is only complete when it comes from Him. Joy is only full when it rests upon what He provides. And meaning no longer lies in achievements or outcomes, but in the growing relationship between you and the one who formed you with His own breath. This unity is not a distant state for special people, but an invitation open to anyone who longs to know God, not merely with the mind, but with a deep, reverent love. This unity grows when what matters to Him becomes what matters to you. When the beauty of righteousness captures your heart, when you tremble at what is right just as He does, and when you hurt over evil as He hurts. As this unity grows, the things that once distracted you lose their pull. The things you once thought important reveal themselves as weeds, and the simple things touched by God's breath become radiant in your eyes. For when your heart aligns with His, even the small becomes sacred. My child, when God draws you into this unity, He teaches you a new language, not of words, but of spiritual sensitivity. You will know when He tells you to stop, even if no one understands why. You will sense when He invites you to move forward, even if circumstances look unfavorable. You will recognize when He is warning you, not with thunder, but with a faint trembling in your spirit. Others may see you as unusually calm or unexpectedly decisive. But you know that you are responding to an inner call, one not born of emotion, but of the Spirit. God will refine your spiritual intuition so you no longer struggle over the small things. For your soul will be aligned with the wisdom of heaven. In the months, God trains you through silence. He is in fact expanding your soul's capacity to hold more of His presence. If He answered every question instantly, you would never learn the sensitivity needed for such unity. But when you learn to stand in uncertainty without panic, when you learn to trust God without having the full map, when you know He is working even when there is no visible sign, your soul becomes deeper, stronger, wider, like a riverbed carved before the waters rise. You will no longer measure your worth by success or failure, by praise or silence, because you will know that God does not measure you by these. When you enter unity with Him, you will know you are precious, not because you are useful, but because you belong to Him. You will know you are loved, not because you are strong, but because even in your weakness, He looks at you with the eyes of a father, and when that becomes real to you, the fear of losing your worth will no longer cling to you, for your soul has found its shelter. This unity does not pull you away from real life. On the contrary, it makes you more present than ever. When your heart beats with God's heart, you work not to prove yourself, but because you know you are participating in what He is doing on earth. You love others not to be loved back, but because God's love flows through you naturally. You speak at the right moment because His wisdom within you teaches you what to say and what to keep. You will know when to stand for truth and when to stay silent for peace. Unity does not remove you from the world. It enables you to shine within the world without being consumed by it. God will widen your heart to contain things far greater than you ever imagined. He will place within you holy burdens that do not spring from fear, but from love for the lost, love for the weak, love for lands where the light has not yet reached. You will begin to feel what He feels, to weep over the pain He has already seen, to rejoice in the joy He is building, and to intercede with a stirring that does not come from human will, but from the Holy Spirit. This is the sign of unity. You weep over what He weeps over. You long for what He longs for. You stand firm where He stands. This unity is not a summit you must climb to reach. It is a way of living that you step into day by day. There is not a single day when God does not want to be close to you. There is not a single moment when He withdraws His faithfulness. There is no trial that makes Him abandon you. He does not change. Only your heart sometimes forgets to turn toward Him. But when you learn to return even with just a whisper, a breath, a brief pause in your thoughts, the door opens again, and God steps in once more, never hesitating, never delaying, never holding back. For from the beginning, God destined that you would live in this intimacy with Him, and that He would be in you as you are in Him. My beloved child, when I lead you deeper into communion with me, I am not inviting you into a vague, elusive experience. I am teaching you a very concrete way of life to live with the awareness that everything you think, feel, choose, say, and do can become a place where I reveal myself. If you allow your heart to open, the unity between you and me is not a sudden emotional high that flares up and then fades. It is a rhythm of life built from small decisions, quiet returns, the repeated choice to come back to me instead of letting your mind drift aimlessly. I do not wait for you to have a perfect day to draw near. I come to you in the most ordinary days, to teach you that intimacy with God is not a reward you receive after you have lived well, but the very source that enables you to live rightly. And so I begin to touch the way you use each moment of your life when you are alone, when you are among others, in stretches of time you call empty, in the minutes of waiting, in the spaces you think are wasted. God wants to weave himself into those seemingly scattered pieces, so that one day, when you look back, you will realize there is no place in your life where he has not already passed through. I know there are times you long to live closer to God, yet in your mind you imagine that this can only happen if you have many quiet hours, ideal settings, and favorable conditions. You think you must go to a holier place, have a proper schedule, become more disciplined before you dare say you are living intimately with him. But he tells you that he is not waiting for you to climb a hill. He is walking down to meet you on the path where you are now. God can use the briefest moments to draw your heart near to him, a few minutes while you sit in a vehicle, a short stretch of road you walk alone, a time of washing dishes in silence, a pause while you listen to the rain and look inside yourself. If you dare believe that God is waiting for you in those ordinary moments, you will see that you do not have to wait until everything calms down to begin living in intimacy with me. You only need to begin speaking to him right in the middle of your current condition. My child, when you whisper to God a simple and honest sentence, "Lord, I am confused. I don't know what to do," in that very moment, you are stepping into the reality of communion. When you open the scriptures, not to fulfill a duty, but to say, "Show me yourself in these words," in that very moment, you are placing your hand into his hand. When you sit still without complicated phrases, simply allowing him to look at you and you to look at him, right there, a quiet conversation between God and your soul has already begun. Even if you hear no voice and see no extraordinary sign, my child, God also wants to teach you that living in communion with him does not mean you must always feel something lofty. It means you learn to be faithful to the small rhythms he weaves into your day. It may look like turning back to God before you rush to react in anger, pausing for a moment before hitting send on a message to ask, "Lord, does this reflect your heart?" Taking a few minutes before diving into a screen to ask, "Lord, what is my soul truly hungry for right now?" Or ending a day not only with exhaustion, but with a surrender, "Lord, this unfinished part I place in your hands." These things do not make you pretend to be holy. They make you more real, because you no longer carry everything alone. God is in every one of those steps, guarding your mind from being swept away by invisible currents of fear, insecurity, comparison, or bitterness. As you begin to live with this continual rhythm of returning, unity with him ceases to be a concept and becomes your very breath. You will realize that even when your day is far from perfect, your relationship with him is not severed. It only needs a glance, a call, a whisper to be restored. When God invites you into such intimacy, he does not ignore the very real challenges you face: pressure, responsibilities, complex relationships, old wounds that still ache, questions about the future. On the contrary, precisely because he knows these things are real, he wants what lies between you to be just as real, not merely theoretical. God wants you to bring even the ugly emotions to him: the jealousy you are ashamed to admit, the anger you try to suppress, the exhaustion you are afraid will be judged as weakness. The questions you fear will be labeled as lack of faith. He does not ask you to push these aside before coming. He wants them to become the very material of your conversations with him. When you dare to say, "Lord, I am jealous. I know it is not beautiful, but I don't want to hide it from you." True communion is beginning, because you have allowed me to step into the very place you once kept locked. When you can sigh and confess, Lord, I am angry. I cannot forgive yet. Please touch this part of my heart. You are opening a space where I can do what you cannot do on your own. Communion is not a performance of maturity. Communion is the courage to bring your immaturity before the one who never grows tired of walking with a soul that is still growing. The unity to which God invites you will also gradually transform the way you perceive time. Instead of seeing time as an enemy chasing you, or as a meaningless stream slipping through your fingers, you will begin to see that each day is a space He has entrusted to you. Each season is a lesson He has prepared, and each delay is a sacred pause He intentionally places so you do not run faster than your soul is able to endure. When you commune with God, you will become less hasty in concluding what season of life you are in. You will understand that there are promises He plants today that are meant to bloom in a future you cannot yet see. You will doubt less when what you are living does not resemble your initial expectations, because you know God sees farther than you do, and He is adjusting the landscape of your heart to align with the design only He holds. This communion teaches you to accept that you will not always understand, but you will always rest in the hands of the one who understands all things. There will come a moment when, as you let God lead one day into the next, you will notice something you did not perceive at the beginning, that deep within, you no longer seek Him as a means to obtain something, but He Himself becomes the one you desire. You will still ask, still hope, still bring your real needs before me. Yet even when the answer delays, you will no longer crumble the way you once did, for losing something you longed for no longer feels like losing God. Instead, you will realize that certain things are withheld not because God denies goodness, but because He is protecting the communion you and He have patiently built, shielding it from anything that would appear to be a blessing yet secretly lead you astray. This is the place He wants to lead you to, where each morning you wake, not only with the question, "What must I do today?" but also with the whisper, "How will I live this day with you?" A place where even the smallest acts are infused with awareness of me, where victories do not make you forget the source, where failures do not make you forget the one who upholds you, where sorrow does not make you doubt my love, and where joy does not make you forget the deeper call. And in that rhythm, you will recognize a simple truth that is the greatest secret of the life of faith: that God has never been distant, never abandoned you, never loosened His hand from your soul, and communion simply trains your heart to live as if that reality is the clearest truth nothing can contradict. My beloved child, when the journey that carried you from knowing God to trusting Him, to leaning on Him, and finally to deep communion with Him begins to reach the end of one chapter, He wants your soul to perceive a truth understood only by those who have undergone quiet transformation within, that God is not merely accompanying you, He is shaping you to become one who carries His presence into the world. The true purpose of communion is not for you to accumulate beautiful spiritual experiences in the secret place, but for your soul, having learned to remain in me, to become a continual flow of love, peace, clarity, and kindness from God into a world steadily losing these things. You may not realize it, but simply remaining in Him has already changed the atmosphere around you. For a healed soul emits a gentleness others can feel, even when you say nothing. God has seen the change within you through the smallest things, the way you no longer react with haste, the way you pause to seek peace before deciding, the new softness in your words, the light in your eyes when you recognize what is right, the way your heart now refuses what is not from Him, even when it seems appealing. You do not notice it because the change rises like a slow, steady tide, but he sees it clearly. And he wants you to know that this quiet transformation is the strongest evidence that God truly dwells within you. The world does not need perfect people. It is thirsty for honest souls, souls drawing strength not from achievement, but from unbroken communion with God. The world is longing for something it cannot produce, peace untouched by circumstance. And he desires you to become a bearer of that peace, not through loud declarations, but through an inner steadiness that comes from knowing who God is and what he is doing. Even when everything around you trembles, there will come moments when you step out of the quiet space of communion and face the real challenges of life, strained relationships, unkind words, sudden changes, circumstances requiring you to choose what is right, even when it is harder. But God has not drawn you into intimacy to keep you hidden. He has drawn you close to prepare you for the very moments when the light you carry will be the only thing preventing the darkness from breaking in. You once trembled before such moments. But now, with a heart trained to listen, you will see that the strength holding you up is not your own, but the presence God has placed within you, a presence nothing on this earth can take away. When you let God become the center of your thoughts and emotions, you will begin to see others through his eyes. Those who once irritated you will become souls needing patience and compassion. Those who once wounded you will become opportunities to practice self-giving love. Those who faltered or failed will no longer be objects of judgment, but places where you can offer the kindness you yourself have received from him countless times. You are changed not to become extraordinary, but to become like Jesus, the one who walked among people without bitterness, who endured misunderstanding without retaliation, who loved the one who betrayed him, who washed the feet of the unworthy, and who offered restoration even to those who had grown weary of themselves. Communion with God is not the conclusion of your spiritual journey. It is the beginning of a new life, one in which you no longer walk by the strength of your old patterns, but by the light of knowing he is always in you. When you face fear, he wants you to remember he is right there. When you face uncertainty, he wants you to remember he has gone before you. When you must speak what is difficult, he wants you to remember he gives words to your mouth. When you must rise after failure, he wants you to remember it is he who lifts you. When you feel forgotten, he wants you to remember he has never left your side. The final invitation of this journey is not only to commune with God, but to become one who brings that communion into the lives of others. You will meet the confused, and you will become a sign of peace. You will meet the hopeless, and you will become a breath of hope. You will meet those who doubt that real love exists, and you will become living evidence that God's love is more than an idea. You need not enter their world with flowery words. Your peace, your gentleness, your authenticity will touch the hidden places others are afraid to expose. Look back on the entire journey, the days you did not understand, the nights you collapsed, the moments you felt unable to continue, the times you stood at a crossroads not knowing where to turn. None of these were accidental. Every one was a classroom. He used to bring you here, where your heart is no longer pulled by outward noise, but anchored in him. Not one tear was wasted. Not one delay was meaningless. Not one prayer fell to the ground. Not one trial failed to bear fruit. God wants you to enter the future, not with the fear of having to protect what you have received, but with the confidence that he will continue to hold you, continue to teach you, continue to transform you, continue to open the way, and continue to flood every dark corner within you with his light. Communion is not an achievement you must guard. It is a gift he continues to give as long as you keep returning. What God has begun in you will not stop halfway. You are being transformed, lifted, expanded, refined, renewed by the very breath of God. And He, the one who began this good work, will bring it to completion in glory. Nothing in heaven, on earth, or in the hearts of people can hinder what He is doing in your soul. My child, be at peace. You are not merely in God's hands, you are held in His heart. And that is where you will always belong. Thank you for listening to today's message. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue receiving the living word together, building a steadfast faith and walking in the boundless love of God. Amen.